If there is indeed a country for a Westerner which is the source of the greatest fascinations, it's Iran. This country enchants as much as it frightens. But we picture one thing. Ayatollah Khomeini, Persepolis, American flags on fire, satanic verses, the nuclear threat. Iran turns the heads of investors from all over the world. The world's first gas reserves, basements overflowing with oil, resources that are still underexploited. A market of 80 million Iranians spread across prestigious cities such as Isfahan, Shiraz, Mashhad, and the capital Tehran, a monster with 10 million inhabitants. Iran is an El Dorado, but for 40 years it has been a closed country. After 2.5 months of waiting, we get valuable visas, but only for 9 days. On site, we realize very quickly that no official will agree to meet us, that finally our camera is a problem, that filming should be avoided. However, when we arrived in Tehran, on the streets, in taxis, at the hotel, we were welcomed differently.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hello, good morning. Thank you. Salam.
Iranians want their country to open up more. They want to reconnect with the world. And protected by the lean curtain filter, some have confided in us. They told us what it means to live under the Islamic Republic.
Each child born in Iran has a double life from birth, a public life and a private life with friends and family. And you get used to it as best you can.
I won't say that I'm afraid of the regime. What does that mean? That I know the regime, that I know these red lines, and that I do not exceed them.
People in Iran drink alcohol in complete freedom, they go to parties in complete freedom. You can see that outside. Women wear the veil, but in the evenings, they don't wear it.
You endorse every day an appearance that is not yours, and that you don't like. It's a form of hypocrisy that you carry with you all the time.
In fact, we don't interact much with the Islamic Republic. We live our lives normally. But the shadow of the Islamic Republic is still there.
Try it on a daily basis. The problem is not so much the recourse to physical violence, but rather the fact that it threatens to use violence. The regime has a vast intelligence and security network, which is used to warn, to worry, to threaten and frighten people. And I think that's one of the aspects, the most despicable in this regime. He doesn't just threaten you as an individual. He's threatening to harm your family. That's how he stays in control.
Iranian woman lives under the watchful eye of a religious power headed by the supreme guide of the Islamic Republic, Ali Khamenei. We know him, just beyond the borders of Iran. He never leaves the country, never meets. No foreign leaders. He is above everything, the incarnation of divine power.
Khamenei commands the armed forces. He controls the judiciary and the secret services, as well as a vast administration, which puts him in the middle of everything that is happening in Iran.
The Supreme Guide, also under his orders, a powerful elite corps, composed of 120,000 men, the Revolutionary Guards.
The guardians of the revolution, without its armed wing, in a way, I would say that they form a kind of modern brotherhood
These men saw the war, so they are not afraid of war. This gives them an incomparable advantage.
If Iran's security did not exist, its territorial integrity would be in danger.
The guardians of the revolution have built around their power an astonishing propaganda machine. In these movies, they are invincible and thwart the plans of their enemies, numerous in the region. Iran is a country surrounded by conflicts and unstable areas, and it's a separate country in the Middle East. Iranians are Persians. While in the West all their neighbors are Arabs, the Persians practice Shiite Islam, largely a minority compared to Sunni Islam, of which 90% of Muslims are a part of. Iranians feel under constant threat. They need the power of the Revolutionary Guards. But these men who protect them are also the ones who prevent Iran to open up to the world. Revolutionary Guards are not a classical army. They are the guardians of an ideology. They defend the heritage of a revolution which spoke out against foreign interference and, in particular, against American imperialism. In the 1950s, Iran is the pillar of politics American in the Middle East. Washington then bet on its young king, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi.
The United States sold him absolutely everything he wanted in terms of military equipment. And in exchange, he had to be our agent for all intents and purposes in the Middle East. He was going to become our protector. Nixon sat across from the Shah during their last meeting and told him, "Protect me." He was the President of the United States who was addressing the Shah of Iran.
In the midst of the Cold War, the Shah and his powerful army are a rampart to a possible Soviet invasion of the Middle East thanks to oil money. The Shah is also a valuable customer for Western industries. France and the United States help him to develop its first nuclear program. The Shah receives all honors at each of his visits. Paris wants to see in him a modern leader. But for the Iranians, the Shah is a despot. He suppresses all opposition and lives cut off from his people. His efforts to modernize the country only benefits a very few. Anger is rising. How then the mistake that will cost him his throne? He attacks himself through the press to Ayatollah Khomeini. This religious, then little known, has been in exile in Iraq for 15 years for criticizing the Shah and its alliance with the United States. Khomeini is becoming an icon. The first major events exploded in 1977.
Ayatollah Khomeini's slogan was altogether against the Shah. He promised that the next regime would be based on the popular vote. That's why everyone accepted him as a leader. Quickly, all political currents, without exception, are committed in this revolution against the Shah.
Communist, nationalist, religious, calls for the return of Khomeini. The Ayatollah is no longer safe in Iraq. He's settled in France, or Iranian nationals can stay without a visa. It's in Neufle-Château, near Paris, that Romani and his family outline the features of the new Iranian regime. Journalists flock to meet the Ayatollah. They portray him as a liberator. Few people have taken the time to listen to his speeches that circulate on tape and under the table all over Iran.
I asked our intelligence agents, "What does she say? And his soul? What is on it?" I have never heard a single transcript. For a reason, I don't know. Nobody thought it deserved our attention. It's a real failure in intelligence matters. Since the beginning of the year, despite all majesty, riots and demonstrations have been numerous.
Have you, at some point or another, thought that we were going to have to take an abrupt turn, eventually resign?
For what reason? Fix the problem? Will that solve the problem? Do you know what will happen in Iran? No, because I am one.
In January 1979, faced with pressure from the streets, the Shah is leaving Iran forever. The Iranian Revolution brings an end to a 2,500-year-old monarchy. Expected by an entire population, Sayu, the Ayatollah Khomeini is making a triumphant return. Romani must, however, compose with the others revolutionary movements which aspire to democracy. This is how the Islamic Republic of Iran is born. On the one hand, the power of the people, represented by a president and an elected parliament. On the other hand, the power of God, incarnate by the supreme leader. It was also at this time that the Revolutionary Guards are born. Their role engraved in the Constitution is to protect the achievements of the revolution. From the very first hours, revolutionaries are afraid that the regime be overthrown. On November 4, 1979, while the Shah has just been admitted in an American hospital suffering from terminal cancer, students are climbing the American embassy compound chanting "Death to America."
At the time, we believed everything that the United States wanted to stage a coup d'etat. And that, I can guarantee you because I am of the same generation. I even remember it. It's not something that I studied. It's something I've experienced.
The attack on the American embassy owes nothing to chance. No Iranian has forgotten that the Shah had already been resettled to power by force with help from the United States in 1953. The CIA then instigated its first coup of state and overthrow the Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, who had nationalized Iranian oil. When he enters the embassy, the students put their hands on secrets the best kept in the CIA. Today, this embassy can be visited like a museum, accompanied of a guide.
When they opened the door, they found themselves facing this room made of glass that was used for negotiations and secret meetings between the ambassador and its staff. Here you can see teletypewriters that Americans use to code important letters and documents. As you can see, they had computers before Bill Gates. That's the counterfeit room. The Americans used these tools to make fake passports and false papers, for CIA members only, to send them to other countries to do espionage, a bit like James Bond.
Inside the embassy, students take hostage 52 American nationals.
Ayatollah Khomeini was taken by surprise. He was not informed before the end of the events. At CJM Wisdom, he decided to support them out of opportunism and focus. It diverted attention to an external enemy, while there were many internal divisions. And that allowed the Islamist wing of the revolution to consolidate its power in any way.
With this hostage-taking, the Islamic Republic has its founding myth and its eternal enemy, the United States. The Great Satan.
So any possibility of dialogue is ruled out because everyone wants to find their identity and their pride. So we invent embargoes, sanctions, measures, but it's inoperative.
When you have a government
when a government is also opposed to your interests and also opposite to your value system. It is not surprising that you feel like to see it disappear. There were people who, right from the start, they said that a good mullah is dead. Sudden death is a decoy. But in reality, to reverse government is not that easy.
The regime held, hanging on to his story that fixed him on the walls.
I have the feeling that my ideas have been confiscated. This revolution that we made was stolen from us.
The regime is constantly trying to bring us back to the past. When you get so hung up on the past, it's the sign that there is nothing left to defend today.
With the passage of time, the face is wrinkled. At the time of the big prayer on Friday, we mostly see old men. Some came in minibuses chartered by the regime. Is it time when the Islamic Republic delivers his official speech and where we play again collectively the fervor of the revolution past? Two out of three Iranians are too young to have known him irretrievably. Revolutionary enthusiasm is fading away.
I don't believe that our state either a religious or mature state. It is a state that benefits from religion to assert its power.
To be religious, or rather display your religiosity, bring a lot of things. But religion has become a business in Iran. Today, it allows you to evolve more quickly in your career, to earn money, to take out a loan. Religion can also allow you to change social class.
The Islamic Republic knows how to reward those who show themselves to be pious and faithful, whether they are sincere or not. In every mosque, in every neighborhood, and even on the facades of businesses, we came across this badge. It belongs to Basij, an organization created by the regime. One evening, this manager of a base in the Basij agreed to receive us. You have to first stomp on the American flag because the young man is suspicious. But he takes the risk of talking to us without the authorization of his hierarchy.
It's impossible, a bazaar with a blind scene. The younger ones are coming to join us for the attractive side, to play ping pong, for example. And when they grow up, when they're my age, they take care of teenagers. So they don't hang around too much on the street, that they don't have bad relationships. Here, it's a healthy environment. Little by little, these young people will evolve and they will progress in coaching. And later, they will be able to access at military posts with the Revolutionary Guards or in the army. But also becoming member of municipal councils or work in education. They will have a choice to do what they like. Their experience with Basij will serve as a base for them to succeed in life. This motivated the
But in
Basij.
reality, Basij today has been the only true political party in the country for 15 years. But it's a network of young individuals and videos belonging to a religious institution linked to the Guide Supreme and placed under control of the Revolutionary Guards. Watch out for. And they proved to be very effective to maintain control.
Drowned in the crowd, Basij members monitor or punish according to the needs of the regime. The Basij is also striving to transmit to the new generations the story of the first years of the regime, those tragic years during which Iran found itself alone against the rest of the world. On September 22, 1980, only a few months after the Iranian Revolution, Iraq invades Iran. Saddam Hussein, the president of Iraq, hoped to get hold of Iranian oil. And he knows that no one will stop him.
Iran has never been accepted in the region, just a country that was scary. It's a country who has always frightened his neighbors, but far beyond its neighbors. And then Iran. Islamic Iran did not have that presume ambitions of Imperial Iran. Imperial Iran did the same afraid that Islamic Iran, but there was a religious dose plus that scared the neighbors.
Khomeini immediately said that his revolution was not limited to Iran. And he designated those what he called the cats of the world, has been a tale as so many targets of the revolution. But those who wanted to say that the king of Saudi Arabia and the other heads of state in the region were also targeted, revolutionaries.
Saudi Arabia and Kuwait fund Saddam Hussein's army. In the region, Iraq is the only country capable to put Iran in trouble.
As long as it looked like Iran was going to lose, everyone was happy to watch it from afar and to let it happen. But when it became possible for Iran to reverse the situation and win this war, everyone got really nervous. And that's when the United States started supporting the idea and let French planes come on the scene.
France was already the first supplier of armaments by Saddam Hussein in 1983. He went so far as to lend him 5 Super Intended planes with their Exocet missiles. French planes target Iranian oil tankers. For Tehran, it is an act of war. France is becoming Little Satan. We need to see what's going on right now.
France is trying to have an Arab policy who is an element of inheritance by General de Gaulle. And it is true that we consider at that moment, and we say it, that should absolutely be avoided, that the border between the Persians and the Arabs are moving and that the stability of this region is important. It is not necessary that there be changes. But we didn't know at the time that it was going to last a very long time, and that the Iraqi regime was gradually going to demonstrate confidence in its military superiority and its capabilities, probably excessive compared to the reality of things.
With its support, Saddam Hussein no longer has any limits. He is carrying out mustard gas attacks and sarin gas.
It brings job news, even when chemical weapons have been used against us. The world has remained silent if it did not oppose or support Saddam Hussein. Except for wanting a lot of lives have been lost because of chemical weapons. 2 of my best friends are dead because of those chemical weapons. And that played an extremely important role. It's a hypothesis because it forged the way we design foreign policy, and we can't count only on our own resources to defend ourselves.
This feeling of injustice has united the nation. It resonates strongly in the imagination of the Iranians, and in particular in that of believers. The fight of the weak against the strong has been celebrated for centuries. In the northern suburbs of Tehran, a ceremony is being prepared. It brings together the inhabitants of the neighborhood around a religious singer. One morning,
My name is Hossein Mohammadi. I am passionate about Madai, the religious songs, since I was a teenager. Shiite Islam has in essence a political dimension. We stand for human freedom. Like our model, Imam Hussein, who fought injustice in the world until his death.
believers hammer out the name of the saint, one of the 12 imams of Shi'ism, a martyr. In 680, Hossein launched in a losing battle in advance against the Sunni caliph, whose army is unquestionably more powerful than him. He died decapitated. Since then, Shiites are mourning his sacrifice. The martyrdom of Hossein served the regime's propaganda when it was necessary to mobilize men against Iraq in the 1980s. Thousands of teenagers are sent to the front, convinced that, like Hossein, their deaths will be mourned and glorified, even if it is useless. The regime is not afraid of staged events. This fountain represents the blood shed by the martyrs. It sits in the heart of the Arab cemetery in Tehran. For 40 years, families meet there every weekend, between celebrations and meditation, to share a meal with a loved one who disappeared in combat before. Count a martyr in your family is a source of pride.
I have known a lot of buried martyrs. Again, we were at the front together. Everything is symbolic. You are coming back before my very eyes. Some of my companions, they became martyrs. I am officially a member of the Guardians of the Revolution and even of their deaths. Since the revolution, our country has always been watched with lust. If we are attacked, we return the favor because we have no intention to attack another country. But we are convinced that unclean eyes still covet our.
It's the official speech of the Revolutionary Guards stand on the defensive. But contrary to what they assert in the 1980s, when they were still fighting against Iraq, the guardians of the revolution went on the offensive in Lebanon, at the time in the midst of a civil war. On October 23, 1983, the Marine contingent in Beirut is the target of an attack. 241 dead. A few minutes later, the cantonment of French paratroopers is targeted in turn. 58 dead. It's the Drakkar attack, a tribute to the family. The attack has not been claimed, but for the Americans and the French, there is no doubt.
We're not going to let a bunch of insidious terrorists, cowards, shape the foreign policy of the United States.
After the attacks in Beirut, French and American troops are leaving Lebanon. It is a victory for Iran. He helped to force Westerners outside the Middle East.
If the Iranians see their country like a country with a long history and a great civilization which dates back several thousand years, and as a country that has a role to play in the Washington area, when they look to the Western presence in the Middle East, they place themselves in a perspective in the very long term. For them, Westerners are newcomers who won't be around for long, and in the future, it will be the Iranians who will manage the business of the region.
Iran sets up a system of alliances. It relies on Syria, Iraq's archenemy, and the only country for supporting him in his war against Saddam Hussein. Between Damascus and Tehran, unbreakable relationships are being forged. Iran and Syria are going to support the same armed groups to serve as a relay for their policies. Palestinian groups or groups of Shiite persuasion created, funded, or trained by the Revolutionary Guards in Damascus. The most powerful of them is the Lebanese Hezbollah.
We are innocent victims. We don't have to pay for choices that escape us.
In 1984, Hezbollah is one of the factions that kidnapped 30 Westerners in Lebanon, including 12 French people.
Hostages had been taken into custody by structures that obeyed directly to Iran or to certain structures in Iran. So the services are looking quite quickly. We understood that it came from there and that it was a form of reaction, among others, to what was going on mainly with Iraq and in particular by the French on Iraq. So very, very quickly, we understood that it was something natural, that it was going to be difficult. And that one of the objectives was obviously to put pressure on France to give up to its action in Iraq.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. New drama, new terrorist attacks today after 12 p.m. in the middle of Paris. 5 dead and 60 injured.
Several waves of attacks are committed on French soil. France will finally see again its support for Iraq. The last hostages were freed in 1988.
During this period, but are not at war with Iran. We were not the exclusive stakeholder of the conflict, even if we sold arms. We are gun dealers, so relations with Iran have not been irreversibly damaged. Each after the fact, thankful of his faults. Well, the messages, all the states they send them, sometimes violently. But we pass over that, and once the war is over, when Iran settled unilaterally his problem with his attacker Iraqis, we've moved on.
3 years after the end of the war, the first 405 Peugeot is already driving in Tehran. French companies are placed in this market, or American competition has disappeared. For the regime, the return to peace is a critical moment. The conflict federated the nation. Oppositions are now at risk to wake up. The regime executes 5,000 political prisoners, shot or hanged in groups on cranes at intervals of half an hour. It's the last act of Ayatollah Khomeini's bloodshed. The Supreme Guide passes away before the cameras. With the disappearance of the Ayatollah Khomeini, the revolutionary period is coming to an end. In the eyes of Westerners, Khomeini will remain the figure of fanatical and authoritarian Iran. Behind their television screens, many don't see anything else, only the face of evil and dementia. There are others like these, passion, still have a great deal of weight. It's a completely different face who is offered to us when we discover Rum, the capital of Shirism in Iran. Rum is a student city. It's here that the Islamic Republic makes his mullahs. These students will integrate the ranks of the administration. They will become civil servants, judges, deputies. Others will be devoted entirely to religion, but all of them will have to follow a long time and difficult to learn in Shiite. It is not enough to know sacred texts. You have to learn to give them meaning, to be revealed their hidden meaning. What controls the best, this art of interpretation, become ayatollahs or marja makes them the highest of the clergy. They are references and role models for all believers. Elvis Borujerdi is one of the 60 ayatollahs who teach in Rum.
In Shi'ism, the door is open for interpretation, which is not the case in imported Sunnism among the Sunnis. There is in general a religious leader who decides and everyone should follow his judgment protected. With us, since time immemorial, the Ayatollahs and the Marja give their judgment depending on the context, constantly updating us, our interpretation of texts. This leads to a great deal of diversity, and it's about this diversity that builds our belief. We are at their house. Sometimes there are differences among senior officials, wrongly, but the population is free to choose the Ayatollah or the Marja, who will be his reference. None judge.
In Shi'ism, there is something to allow the Iranian regime to move towards more openness and tolerance. But when he created this regime, Ayatollah Khomeini did not exhaust in this Islam only what corresponded to his own political vision. No religious leaders wouldn't dare to say it publicly. But there are many who refuse the very idea of an Islamic republic with at its head a supreme guide.
What this Supreme Guide function is a doctrinal innovation that the Ayatollah Khomeini himself imagined while he was in exile before the Iranian Revolution. It is necessary two chains. Historically, this merger between a political power and a religious power is not based on any tradition. It's something that many religious people, including influential clerics, rejected at the time of the Iranian Revolution.
Khomeini, like his successor, the current Supreme Guide, have been able to silence this opposition. But they couldn't prevent that the pluralism specific to schism resurfaces in the political game. A mullah proposed another vision of what may be an Islamic republic. Today, he no longer has the right to appear in public. Iranian media can't even say his name. Mohammad Khatami, a reformer. In 1997, he was elected president of the republic with 70% of the votes. Nobody expected it.
What is changing is that, for the first time, you can feel the gravity of the system reduced. We don't question the foundations of the country. It does not call into question the Islamic Republic, but it's trying to create or expand a space of freedom that did not exist completely before his election. And that's the reason he creates so many hopes in these young people. And that's the reason Khatami remained an extremely popular man. Even if his images are forbidden in the country, he has remained a reference, and he opened a breach, because the Iranians and young Iranians know that it exists in this country politicians who are able to take into account their aspirations and to express them politically.
Mohammad Khatami is reaching out to Westerners. He defends the dialogue of civilizations all the way to the United Nations podium. Abroad, too, there is hope.
The protocol is always the same. The scene is well known, but something happened. This after 12, in the courtyard of the Élysée Palace. Mohammad Khatami is indeed the first Iranian president coming to France since the revolution of '79. We welcomed President Khatami in France. We were the first with the Italians, if I remember correctly, because we wanted to highlight him. We wanted to support those who, within Iran, we seem to be the most successful of a project for the future of youth who is full of generous hope. And so, as always, we pressed what seemed closest to us of our vision of what should become Iran in the short term. After the first election of Khatami, we had a media spring. People were concerned and were reading. They were happy. They had hope. Something has changed in our society after the election of Khatami, and nobody could not prevent it. And we work and people keep going to fight today to preserve values that appeared at the time.
It was the first time that the conservatives realized that they were under very serious threat. There was this scene. They used the justice system, the armed forces, the basage to contain Khatami and stop him from doing what be it numerous. And there was an assassination attempt against one of the main strategists of the reformist camp. Said, Algerian men, henchmen. But they failed to kill him, while they have him shot at close range. But he became quadriplegic, and many people say it's a very good metaphor for what happened with the reform movement. They never succeeded in killing him, but they severely handicapped him.
Rakamar stuck in his reforms, he does not succeed in getting out Iran from its diplomatic isolation. It is, however, under his presidency, what begins the rise of Iran. At the moment where the United States is faltering, after the attacks of September 11th, the United States launches its war against terror without wanting to. They are going to unleash Iran's power by eliminating its worst enemies. Washington's first target is the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, who is hosting Osama bin Laden. These extremists ferociously hate the Shiites and have long been a threat to Iran on its western flank. Rose provided intelligence to the American army. For the first time, a cooperation is committed between Iran and the United States. But this agreement breaks down when George W. Bush is giving this speech on weapons of mass destruction.
Iran aggressively pursues these weapons and exports terror, while an unelected few repress the Iranian people's hope for freedom. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
Avec l'Iran, l'Irak et la Corée du Nord sont aussi placés dans l'axe du mal.
Iraq is the first target. A boon for Iran. The United States is going to get rid of him from another enemy on its western flank, this time Saddam Hussein. But Tehran is still in the crosshairs. Iranian opponents are coming to reveal the existence of a secret nuclear program. The International Atomic Energy Agency confirms this. It's the start of the Iranian nuclear crisis. In France, diplomats are mobilizing and join the United Kingdom and Germany.
We wanted to demonstrate that we could come up with a solution on weapons of mass destruction through negotiation and not by force, as had been the case in Iraq. The Iranian example was to be the Iraqi counterexample. There is the idea, what if the Iranians have the bomb from other countries, from the region that is already an eruptive region? I am thinking of Turkey. I am thinking of Saudi Arabia and Egypt. They're also going to look for the bomb in this region. It's already an explosive region. If you also add nuclear weapons, see what that can bring to France.
France has been a key actor in this first phase of the Iranian nuclear crisis. At a time when the United States were not ready to discuss directly with Tehran, I think that this dialogue was vital, and it was especially so because it has made it possible to evolve the thinking of the Iranians. Recognizing that during these early years, negotiations have been conducted by Hassan Rouhani himself, Hassan Rouhani.
Hassan Rouhani.
The current Iranian president is received in Paris by European diplomats. He has been appointed by the Supreme Guide to give pledges of goodwill. Tehran suspends its activities of uranium enrichment. But a year later, the Supreme Leader returns on this decision. It causes too much dissent internally, while the conservative camp increase in power. In 2005, the guardians of the revolution enter politics. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is elected president of the republic. He is one of them, a breach of fixed principles by the founder of the regime. Rouhani had forbidden the guardians of the revolution to interfere in politics. In power, Ahmadinejad develops a logic of permanent confrontation with the outside. The more Iran provokes, attacks, the more powerful it gets. This formula, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad will apply it stubbornly, starting with Iraq. For the past 2 years, American troops are occupying the country. The United States overthrew Saddam Hussein and organized democratic elections. The Shiites, who represent 2/3 of the population, are now in power. You have always been kept on the sidelines. Iran is plunging into the breach. A man is in charge of operations, Qassem Soleimani, the commander of the special forces of the Revolutionary Guards. He will become one of the men the most powerful in the Middle East, heroes of propaganda films. But for now, it's in the shadows. Let him infiltrate in Iraq, under the guise of religious foundations. These men are building their network with armed groups. Also, the Revolutionary Guards no longer content themselves with building alliances with Shiite militias.
They encouraged them to attack coalition troops. They provided them with equipment, like improvised explosives. There were many attacks against coalition troops. This was intended to complicate their task at maximum.
Shiite militias are not the only ones to fight the American military presence. Jihadist Sunnis are coming from all over the world. But they will quickly change their target. For these radicals, there is only one Islam, a sectarian war engaged among Sunnis and Shiites. The attacks are becoming daily. Iraq glides gradually under the influence of Iran. Neighboring countries are panicking. Everything is understandable. Let Iran wake up. Sunni leaders are waving the threat of a Shiite axis. From Iraq to Syria or Bashar al-Assad is a staunch ally all the way to Lebanon with Hezbollah. Saudi Arabia, the other regional power, is worried about seeing its influence recede. While another key player in the region feels directly threatened, Israel. In the eyes of the Iranian regime, Israel is a state created from scratch by Westerners, the symbol of American imperialism.
In terms of conventional weapons, Iran has absolutely no capability to bomb Israel. The risk is almost zero. Iran's capacity to project itself beyond its borders is very limited. The only real exception is Hezbollah. It is in the extension of their power. And that's why the Iranians are so determined to maintain this line of communication that goes through Syria to Lebanon and allows them to maintain Hezbollah. And they're not going to give it up.
In 2006, the Israeli army bombed Lebanon to weaken Hezbollah and deal a blow to Iran. But IDF soldiers retreated after a month of fighting. Hezbollah can claim victory. He succeeded there, where all the Arab armies have failed. It caused Israel to back off. It's also a triumph for the sponsors of Hezbollah. The Iranian supreme leader and the Revolutionary Guards are greeted even on Arab streets. Ahmadinejad's marmot is in power for just over a year, but it has already succeeded in mobilizing the entire international community against him: Israel, Iran's Sunni neighbors, and, as early as 2006, the world's greatest powers. The United States, China, Russia are committed to discussions about nuclear energy and join France, the United Kingdom, and Germany. But Mahmoud Ahmadinejad rejects any dialogue. He defends Iran's right to nuclear power, civilian and in fact a national cause.
We have always been almost convinced that Iran was looking for nuclear weapons. We did not have definitive proof of the fact that it was the end goal. But there was a bundle of suspicions who led us always to the same conclusions.
The United Nations adopts economic sanctions against Iran. The situation is frozen until the Iranian presidential elections in 2009. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is the system's candidate. He has no doubts about his re-election.
Those who consider that the Islamic Republic is a closed dictatorship are wrong. They can't understand or predict what is happening in Iran. I have always said that our regime was half open, half closed, half democratic, half despotic.
Mustafa Haider campaigns like everyone the pillars of the reform movement to support Mir Hossein Mousavi. This former prime minister had held away from political life for 20 years. Many Iranians are going to project at him their desire for change.
A health that is not only a movement in society. There is something, there is an energy who is going out. I have been active in several elections before. I know how we are trying to organize a political campaign. How does it work? How to attract people? How to recruit volunteers? But in 2009, it was completely different. We don't do that. It's something in societies.
On the day of the vote, 85% of the voters are going to the polls. The next day, the authorities announced the victory of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad with more than 60% of the votes. Thousands of Iranians take to the streets to denounce massive fraud. It's the biggest demonstration since the 1979 revolution and the birth of the Green Movement.
I found myself in the demonstrations. I didn't know how. It was like an event. People organized a week after the election. During the Friday prayer, the Guide Supreme takes the floor and confirms the victory of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. The challenge of the 2009 protests, it was not about whether there had been fraud or not. The question was that of supreme power. Would he have the last word? And it was exciting at the same time, worrisome at the same time. For me, it's a proud moment. Finally, say no, we don't agree. Finally, we said we are ready to resist. You don't have to destroy everything, but you can say no.
Every Iranian knows that. To defy the Guide is to defy God. lightning strikes the demonstrators. Basij militiamen are thrown at the crowd. We're already counting several dozen dead since the start of the protests. But the Neda Sultan video, who dies in the arms of a protester, is shaking up Iran and the world. This song relates. The Green Movement is overwhelmed by repression, by the numerous arrests. The protests are running out of steam and order is gradually returning. But to save its image, the regime organizes mock trials. We're broadcasting on television the confessions of the main figures of the Green Movement. Mostafa Alizadeh refused to confess. He's going to spend nearly 7 years in prison. When we meet him, he has been free for a few months.
Personally, I never thought that there would be short-term changes term. That's why I easily accepted prison. I thought it was better to stay for a while, but the changes I've been hoping for in the long-run term occurred. This crowd of several million of people who took to the streets and raised awareness to the Supreme Guide and to power that when people vote, they want their vote to be respected. I know that it had positive effects on elections. Forbes gave it to him.
The candidate of the Reformers in the 2009 presidential election is still under house arrest. Admiral Anbai will be released after 2 months of imprisonment. He manages to leave his country and takes refuge in France. In Iran, he risks the prison.
It's not doing well now that I feel sorry for my countrymen who have to leave the country. And in Iran, the guide should be a father. In this country, don't take care of us, his children. Who should we entrust our beauties to current things? That?
Many Iranians think they are forced to deal with this government. And I think we should try to change and correct it.
But that is only these children of this generation who will build Iran's future, and who won't accept the constraints that I had to accept when I was in high school. They left me the result of this movement. My loved one, you must not watch only what happens on the surface and wait for revolutionary changes. They go out in Lubani, are attached to two.
There was no revolution. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad remains president, but the supreme leader takes over the reins. His country is suffering the full brunt. The new economic sanctions imposed by the European Union and the UN. Already, in 2013, the supreme leader no longer has a choice. He has to talk to his worst enemy. Secret discussions are engaging with the United States on nuclear energy.
Obama was convinced that Iran was a major player. I think he understood that it is impossible to have a coherent policy in the Middle East without integrating the Iranians in the equation. And that doesn't mean you have to fall into their arms or give to them whatever it is, but that you have to deal with.
For months later, Hassan Rouhani is elected president of the Republic with the support of the supreme leader, a strong signal. It was Rouhani who had driven discussions with Europeans 10 years earlier. Negotiations can now keep yourself out in the open. A first agreement is put on the table, but France is clearly refusing.
We wanted to have an agreement with the Iranians, but not at any what a price, not a bad deal. If you sign an agreement under these conditions, neighbors would obviously have recognized that this past agreement, freedom of expression, was bogus that guaranteed nothing at all. So at some point, there was a slight tension, as they say in diplomatic vocabulary. I'm removing the word small.
The nuclear agreement was signed on July 14, 2015. Iran gives up the bomb, but when the right, under the monitoring of the International Atomic Energy Agency, to develop civil nuclear power. The sanctions will be gradually lifted. They can be reactivated for the next 15 years, if Iran does not respect the terms of the agreement.
The hope is that in the meantime, between July 14, 2015, and 15 years after the situation general on the one hand, the situation in Iran, on the other hand, has evolved sufficiently for that which was a risk. The moment we started, the negotiation be much less so. Afterwards, we bet on the term that the fundamental position of Iran will have changed, that the country itself will have evolved, that he will be fully reintegrated in the international community, and that a country like this one, just as big or important, must have a constructive role in its region and in the world.
To date, Tehran has complied with all its commitments. Hassan Rouhani held up to the challenge of his first term. It is gradually bringing Iran out of isolation.
It is true that his election is being considered an opening election compared to other candidates. He is seen as a reformer. But obviously, these concepts are a bit different Western concepts.
Rouhani is a very pleasant-looking gentleman. He certainly is someone of very good company. He's much more moderate than others, but he has a long history.
Hassan Rouhani is present from the very first hours of the revolution. You can see him here alongside Ayatollah Khomeini in France in Neuf-le-Château.
He's a man of the system. He's a man who was completely manufactured through the system. He spent 25 years in the security device. He has held extremely important positions in this area. He was the staff advisor of the Guide of the Revolution, the Guide's personal representative of the revolution. And he is loyal, and loyal to the Islamic Republic.
Hassan Rouhani was re-elected triumphantly in May 2017 for his second term. He is facing a dilemma. The Iranian economy is exhausted in the long run. It could threaten the regime if he wants to redress the situation. Hassan Rouhani will have to face the allies of the supreme leader, the Revolutionary Guards.
It is estimated that currently about 40% of the economy is in the hands of the Revolutionary Guards. The problem, of course, it's all very opaque. Nobody knows where they place their interests, which is the case, for example, with the rebels. Let's say the Revolutionary Guards are given a contract to build their expertise and don't have any experience in this field. Therefore, they have to outsource from a company that'll do it for them. Obviously, they take a percentage. These additions of 10 to 30% to the total cost of the project ultimately drives up costs in all sectors in Iran.
They have permissions that others don't have, so that's it. Iran's big problem today. This caste system will have to be broken.
The Revolutionary Guards are still subject to American sanctions, sanctions that Donald Trump has strengthened. The American president has renewed with a policy of confrontation with Iran.
Are these sanctions taxable in Iran? Yes, on a bilateral basis. America, Iran. Do we have to carry out sanctions taken by the American Congress for things that have nothing to do with us, like the taking of hostages in the American embassy? No. But like a transaction, it is made with dollars. You must always be able to trace the origin of the dollars. So, since we don't know how far the Americans are going to trace the origin of the funds, we have to be extremely careful.
The oil tanker Total opens a hole with the support of the French government. In July 2017, Total signed a gigantic contract for exploitation of the largest deposit of natural gas in the world. To avoid the sanctions imposed through the United States, Total had to ensure that, throughout the chain, no guardian of the revolution play intermediaries.
Our economy is in part in their hands. But the more our economy develops, the less role they play. Thanks to investments of foreigners in Iran and to the consolidation of the private sector. But they want to impose a military system in Iran. We are opposed to it, and thankfully, so far, they have not succeeded. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, and neither would I.
But as long as Iran feels threatened, the guardians of the revolution have bright days ahead of them. Everywhere, the security of the country is at stake. We see appearing the silhouette of Qassem Soleimani, the head of the special forces of the Revolutionary Guards.
Qassem Soleimani is a fascinating character. He became a kind of pop icon, in particular with the conflicts in Syria and Iraq. We see him appear on the battlefield and pose on numerous selfies. So I think that's the reason for which one sees Qassem Soleimani as much. It must be clear that Iran is on the front line against those who'd like to destroy the Shiites and destroy the Persians.
On June 7, 2017, the Islamic State commits a double attack in Tehran, aimed at the parliament and the Ayatollah's mausoleum. 17 people are dead and around 50 injured. So far, the Revolutionary Guards have been able to prevent these attacks. In Iraq, Qassem Soleimani and his men threw their forces into the war against the Islamic State. They make Iran a key player, even in the eyes of its worst enemies.
They are very active in this fight, and their role is very important to win the battle against the Islamic State. Yes, we don't talk to them directly. We discuss with the Iraqi government, who consults the Iranians every step of the way.
Qassem Soleimani and his special force are also at work in Syria. On the ruins of Aleppo, Qassem Soleimani contemplates his victory alongside a Russian general. Russia's entry into the war in the air switched the fighting in favor of Bashar al-Assad. But on the ground, Qassem Soleimani and the revolution played a key role. They supervised the Syrian army, mobilized their Hezbollah allies, and created militias by recruiting in the poorest communities.
In what condition is this country, this no man's land? A condition of decrepitude, of destruction? It doesn't matter. Iran says, I'm protecting my exclusive zone, and I am the master of the house. And you, Americans, don't have a say. It's my living space, because I can continue to live, and my sovereignty can be practiced in this extended market, if we open this market. At that moment, Iran turns everything around, all of a sudden, as if it were shrinking within its borders.
In the alleys of the Arab cemetery, the martyrs of Syria joined the dead of past wars. And the martyrs of the revolution fallen for the Islamic Republic, for a regime that will never stop to fear for its survival. A country where the fear of external threat resonates today with an immense desire for opening.
Historically, we have always been a bridge between East and West. And all of a sudden, we disappeared from the world everywhere.
When the doors are open, there will be a lot of exchanges with tourists. We have a very rich culture and few opportunities to show it.
I have so much hope for the future. I think the exchanges will develop to such an extent that it will even affect the religion.
I am very optimistic. There are many things to do. This society has the power to renew itself.